All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Chidi Soapbox. As you can see, it's a special episode because I got a friend with me today. I have my good friend Salim Ata from Nigeria. We were at the same school during our A levels and foundation time, and we kind of went different ways to the UK, and I came to the US. But it's an old time friendship at this point, and so. I'm interviewing Salim today because after graduation in the UK, he got to continue his career being an engineer for the Rolls Royce company. And so I'll be talking to him about everything from schooling all the way beyond to work now and his professional life. I mean, so when we left Westerfield at the A levels and foundation, you ended up going to the University of Leeds, right?
Yes, University of Leeds.
Okay, and like from what I know about that, that's like one of the top 10 universities in the UK, and that sounds like it's just really selective and it's like a high level for geniuses like you. So how are you able to achieve that and get in the beginning?
So with my actual sort of initial offer at the University of Leeds, it was really at that time was to do with grades, I think. So, like you mentioned, it's a really good university. And here in the UK, they're part of like a group what you call, Russell Group universities. So these are like a group of like top 20 universities in the UK that carry out, top level research and, they get funding from the government. So they do sort of cutting edge research, and they're also part of like the Red Brick, which is another group in the UK of like 6 universities that were founded during the, during the 90s in major British industrial cities. So just based off the amount of, money they invest in research and the amount of work they do, naturally they will have a lot of people applying, a lot of applicants. And in order for you to sort of secure a position at that point, because, it's supply and demand, if there's a lot of people applying, then naturally the entry requirements will be a lot more higher. But at that, that was just very good grade in my foundation degree. And, I was able to, complement that with a good personal statement as well. And I think at that time, I didn't really have any experience, and I don't think they necessarily expect you to do. But what you could sort of reflect on is your passion for the subject. So for me, it was mechanical engineering. So just, really talk about that in depth and as to, how you happen to develop that passion and what sort of things drive you outside of your normal academics that's, engineering related. So you talk about things like probably TV shows or things you do in your spare time if you, build certain things or break things like I used to. I used to break my toys all the time just to understand how they work. So I put that in my personal statement. And, it's the little details like that that make it from that early process, really. So I think, it was just really having, good grades and being able to complement that with your passion subject and being able to, communicate that effectively through your personal statement.
What kind of TV shows did you tell them that you watch for that?
So it was like a lot of the natural P shows, Discovery Channel. Like as a kid, I would binge the whole channel if that's even possible. Watch every show I could, and growing up as well, I think one of the biggest influence in my life was watching Dexter's Lab. So as a kid, I always wanted to be Dexter and have my own engineering basement and that sort of thing. So from a very young age, that cartoon sort of influenced me really, which is why I say, parents should allow their kids watch, cartoons at a young age because it really sparks your imagination in ways you can't imagine. So, I did mention all of that in my personal statement and, just talk about things I enjoyed outside of the classroom, really. That was my strategy.
That's funny because I relate to that because also with the Discovery Channel and the documentaries, I would watch the show Extreme Engineering where they were doing just really large projects like sand filling a whole bay for an airport and building that from scratch. Yeah. And honestly, that was an inspiration for me. And I didn't think it worked out for anybody else. And so with going all the way for the bachelor's in mechanical engineering, do you feel that the university reputation, your classes were a bit more difficult than if you had gone somewhere else?
I wouldn't say the class a lot more difficult. So, like I mentioned earlier, more to do with because of the level at which the university or the department is operating. If they're doing cut, the entry requirements are higher, and so therefore they get to filter the best students. But also at the same time, you have the effect to where, the professors that are teaching you or that you're working with, they're also the leaders in their fields, and they're the experts in the field, and they know, the newest, technologies or, theories or whatever they're teaching you. And naturally, their standards will be higher as the other professors who are not at the forefront of the industry. So that did play a role in terms of, what they were teaching you and how they were expecting you to learn and, understand what was happening, because a lot of things you would be taught at, those type of institutions would, things that not a lot of people are doing. So it's the information, you're doing research, and sometimes it might be a bit difficult because you might not have a lot of information of that you're working on a piece of project. So it does require a lot more sort of initiative on your own end and trying to be, critically analyze and critically think for yourself independently of whatever might exist out there. So I wouldn't say it was too difficult. But personally, I believe that engineering 1 + 1 is 2 everywhere in the world, right? So like the answers won't be different.
Yeah.
But the things that are different is how it's being taught to you and what sort of facilities you have that you're allowed to do. So at my university, we had like 3D printers. We're allowed to go down and design things and, print them off. We had amazing workshops that we could just go in, book a slot in there and, do what we had to do. We had high performing computers. We could run simulations that were quite, computationally intensive, and, it was there available for us to do what we needed to do. So I think that's the sort of the key difference between, a top level university and sort of the average ones, really.
So with all of the facilities and the research that your university had, were you actively involved in like any organized program for research or internships while you were in your undergraduate study?
So personally, I was involved with just one piece of research, and it was a very simple, basic research. It was something I did for one of my lecturers. He wanted to sort of restructure the first year coursework for the first year students in one of the subjects. So I just had to develop some, very simple automated encoder system that measures the speed and the distance traveled by the encoder. So it was very sort of basic level. And the reason being is just, I think it's down to my personality. I personally don't really enjoy research per se. It's not something I'm attracted to because I know for a fact that the opportunities were available. And I had colleagues and friends who took that opportunity and, did do sort of research. But for me personally, I just didn't enjoy research. I preferred being on the field or being on my feet and, doing more things that required physical engagement. I know research does as well, depends, or just based on my skill set and what I enjoy, it wasn't something I really took advantage of whilst at university.
And with kind of the picture you're painting of how things were set up there, what was just like everyday student life like organizations or friends and everyday life when you had those expectations laid out for you?
With terms of friends, I think I just had to sort of really push myself out of my comfort zone. So personally, I would say I'm an introvert. My friends might disagree. But personally, I would say I'm an introvert. I like to, keep to my space and do my thing. So, when I went to the UK, to a new country, far from home, where I didn't know anyone, I really had to sort of push myself out of my comfort zone to actually meet people and engage people and, make friends, not just with Nigerians, because that would be the easy way out, looking for Nigerians everywhere, it's very easy. So I tried to really push myself out and, meet international people, and it really exposes you to a lot of things. You grow so much as a person, you don't even realize it. So you learn so much from people from all over the world, which I think is one of the big benefits of studying internationally, if you have the opportunity, is about being able to embrace and appreciate different people and different cultures. and it makes you, as a whole, as a person, your horizons are a lot more broadened. So that was how I went about my sort of social or, personal life, just constantly pushing myself and, challenging myself to, go out there and meet new people, really. So, yeah, that was me in university.
That's cool. So you finished undergrad. Did you go further for a master's degree?
So, yes, so I did my undergrad in mechanical engineering. And straight afterwards, I said I wanted to do an MSc, master's in mechanical engineering. And I think that was a decision that I think at the moment when I finished my MSc, I really felt like I was a complete engineer, if that makes sense. I felt like I had a full understanding of how I could apply all the theories, all the things I've learned in actual industry. And I just became a lot more confident in my skill set and a lot more, even though I wasn't a specialist in every area, I could see and understand how what I've learned in some module could be applied in different industries and how you could sort of bring about change. So I was happy that I did go on to take on my master's. So I think overall it made me a better engineer, really.
And with mechanical engineering being quite broad, I know you have everything from like heating and cooling to actual engines, newer stuff. Was there any specialization that you went into when you started the master's?
Sorry, do you mean special areas in mechanical engineering?
Yeah. Do you have to do a focus when you go into the master's? And did you do that?
Yeah, so you had the option. Some people decided to do a master's in to specialize in aerospace. Some decided to specialize in automotive. Some wanted to go more on the optimization route. For me, I just tried to cheat and get as broad of a range as possible. So I picked the module from all the sort of different areas. And the reason why I did that really was because at the time, I didn't really know what my passion or what exactly I wanted to focus in. And, it might sound really stupid to say, you're doing a master's and you don't know what you want to focus in. But I knew I wanted to do a master's because I wanted to sort of complete myself as an engineer, but I didn't know which field or which sector I wanted to, end my career in. And for that reason, I decided to pick optimization courses. I picked automotive courses. I did an aerospace course, picked sort of a nice mix. I think I did one in business school, just out of curiosity and just trying to stretch myself in different directions. And like I said, I think I was very happy with that decision because, overall, I managed to learn a lot more from, my MSc than I would have if I just had a bachelor's degree. So that was how I really went about it.
Okay. And now, of course, you get to work at the Rolls Royce company. So what's generally, when you finish your master's, what's on the immigration side, what's the process in the UK for working after school?
So in the UK, it's a bit funny. So whilst I was in university, by the way, the regulations change all the time. So you really have to, make sure you're aware of what the laws are in the year that you're studying. Mm-hmm. So whilst I was studying, the regulation was if you had completed your studies, you had 60 days to leave the country, if I'm not mistaken. So that's about 2 months. So upon graduation, you have 2 months to look for a job or to apply for further education if you want to do a PhD or a different master's in terms of your visa being valid. Now, the way you go about it in the UK, if you plan to work whilst you complete your degree, you don't apply after you've graduated. You apply the year before. So the job openings, you typically start in September, October, at the beginning of term. That's when most applications open up, and you have to put in an application to start the following year, September. So it's about a year window. So if you're planning on, working after you're done with your studies, you need to make sure you've started applying a year in advance. And for you to start applying a year in advance, you need to have had your CV like a year and 6 months in advance and your cover letter. And, you've planned out what sort of jobs you want to apply for and sort of know what industries, done your research in the companies. And then, once the September period kicks in, then you try to get applications out as soon as possible. Because a lot of times all these companies, once they have the quota or the number of roles they have filled up, they just close the application. So you really need to make sure you get your application in as soon as you can, which is why it's good to prepare beforehand, just so you know what exactly you're doing when those opportunities present themselves.
Okay. And so you did go through that process of applying a year before?
Yes. So for me, I was applying every year. Like applying for jobs was my part-time job. Outside of uni, I think I was very certain that at least I knew I wanted to, work in the UK because they have a very good engineering sector. And, I knew I had a lot to learn from working here because you're working with a diverse group of people. So from the get-go, really, once I started my first year in university, I had a plan that, as soon as I graduate, I want to have a graduate job in the UK. And once I knew that from my first year, it was very easy to plan because most of these employers look for the same thing. They look for your, competency, your soft skills, and as well as your technical and your educational qualifications. Now, with regards to your educational qualifications, those are things you can get on your day-to-day course and, your normal degree. But with things like your competency and your soft skills, these are things you have to build on your own outside of uni. So you have to engage in a lot of extracurricular activities, which was exactly what I did. So for my first year, I applied for a lot of volunteering opportunities, the Money Ambassador. My first year of uni, I also started, I was the founder and the co-founder and the president of the Video Gaming and Tech Society. Going down to my second and third year, I was the vice president of the Nigerian Student Society. I was the course rep for my MSc Advanced Mechanical Engineering, and a bunch of many other things that I did during uni. So by the time I had come towards the end of my degree, my CV was quite populated. I had lots of evidence to show that I've built certain skill sets that employers would be looking for. And when it came to make my application, it was very easy and I didn't have to panic really, just because I had a 3-4 years lead in terms of knowing exactly where I want to end up and being able to plan that out throughout my 4 years in university. So yeah, was just really planning, making sure I had the skill sets that I needed and, apply. That's the key word, you need to apply to as many companies as you can because up to a point is a numbers game. If you make 1,000 applications, you're about to get one interview at least. So, and the more applications you do, the better you get at them. You get better at, filling the application questions. You get better at doing the online assessments. You get better at doing interviews because you start to see a pattern and you start to know what employers look for and you tend to know how to present that information to them without them digging too much. So the more you do it, the better you get. You speak to your friends, your colleagues, or, you speak to your university for advice, for people to review your cover letters and your CVs. And you do, practice interviews, mock interviews, and yeah, really just apply as much as you can. And, you probably will get a lot of rejections if you're putting a lot of applications. Well, in my case, that was the situation. People are different, but, you have to look past those rejections really because rejections doesn't mean you're not good enough for the role. It just means maybe you weren't able to show that particular employer that you're the right candidate for that job. So it can be hard really to get rejections. It takes a big hit at your self-confidence and, your motivation. But you really just need to keep your head up and, keep putting out as many applications as you can. And with time, you would get a good job offer.
Yeah, I relate to all of that completely because I know I applied to just hundreds of jobs and I had to find one. Also, the fact that with all those volunteer opportunities, you might have to go through interviews for them first. And that helps you build your interview skills and everything.
Yeah, definitely.
And then specifically with the one you ended up with Rolls Royce. So between the application a year before and all the interviews, what was the selection process like for you?
Sorry. So you mean the selection process for the Rolls Royce job?
Mm.
So if I remember correctly, you start with your typical application. So you put in your application, you send it forward your CV, and after that you have a set of application questions they ask you, which you need to give about 500 words as to why X, Y, and Z, or whatever case study they choose to give you at the time. and you send those two in, and then you get sent a link for an online assessment. So for mine, because it was an engineering role, I got a numerical online assessment and a situational judgment online assessment. So these are things you can always practice during your spare time. I believe there's loads of practice assessments on Google. So you just need to search and just practice beforehand. Although different companies have different styles and different things or different case studies they ask, but generally speaking, it's about the same sort of general gist and same way you go about answering these questions and, doing these online assessments. So once you've done your online assessment, then depending on if you've passed both your assessments, then they review your application questions. So the way they go about it is a bit funny. I think they do that to sort of reduce the amount of CVs and applications they need to go through, because I'm sure they get a lot for every year. And once you've passed your online assessment and they've reviewed your application and your CV and your questions, and they're happy with that, then they send you an invitation for an assessment center. So the way the assessment center works is usually a whole day affair. So you go from like 9 a.m. and you finish about 4 p.m. And for mine in particular, when I went, we had first you have a presentation. They give you a case study and you have to, prepare a presentation. And you have to use your flip chart, the board, you have markers, and, talk about whatever case study they've given you to talk about. And then they critique your critical thinking and they ask you why you've done this as opposed to that. And, they talk through what you presented and, sort of poke you in different directions to see how you respond on your feet. And then once you've completed that, you then have a bit of a break, and then you come back and you have your competency interview. Your competency interview involves things like your general, tell me a time when you've displayed leadership skills, or when have you taken critical feedback or criticism, or how have you resolved a fight between two team members, and they try to see how you behave in the workplace. And, like I said, if you've done a lot of extracurricular activities, then that should be very easy for you to have, a lot of evidences you could talk about and, experiences you've had over 3-4 years that you could just pick anyone depending on the question you get. And I think that should satisfy the employer. Once you've had the competency interview, then you have a bit of a break, then you come back, you have your technical interview. Now, with your technical interview, it depends on which role you've applied for. And, they ask you questions from things to do with your degree, and then things to do with the industry you've applied or the role you've applied. And sometimes, I think just for the fun of it, and then you go off for a bit of a break again, and then you come back later on, and then you finish the day off with a group exercise. So the group exercise is a bit of a funny one, because a lot of people typically are under pressure when you're working in groups, because you're competing. That the people you're working in groups with are your direct competitors essentially, and these are all people that are exactly for the same jobs, and these are people that are just as good as you, just as smart or even smarter than you are. Coming from the best universities all over the world. So it might be very easy for you to lose your composure, to lose your cool, or act out of order. But I think the key advice I would give is to make sure you're as composed as you are, and try not to, talk over people or be the loudmouth or be the dictator of the group, essentially. Because for some reason, I don't know why people think being that type of personality is what gets you the job. Because really and truly, it's not what gets you the job. I think the interviewers can tell if you're a bad team player, if you misbehave during the sort of team assessment. So what you really want to play is the kind of role where you're involving as many members of the team into the task as possible. And, whenever you say something, try to say things that actually add value to wherever you're working. Don't just speak for the sake of speaking or for the sake of being heard, or because you're trying to be the leader of the group. That doesn't add direct value to the goal you're trying to achieve. So those are the things that sort of learned and, beforehand, and those are the things that are implemented during the team activity. And then once you conclude the team activity, they give you a brief down, they sort of tell you, okay, you're going to get your response within 48 hours. So for my assessment center, Rolls Royce are very quick, very efficient. They tell you if you've got the job within 2-3 days, or if you don't get the job. So I think that's quite, easy because some companies I applied for didn't even respond me until like a year after I sent my application. Some never even responded to me at all. So in terms of this,
from companies.
sorry?
I still get random emails from time to time with companies
Yeah, like
and it's like already got
4 years later.
already got a promotion here. Like I'm not like
like I don't need a job. If you're trying to be petty, you reply them with your work email just to let them know. But yeah, they let you know within 2 days if you've gotten the job or not. And during the call or the email, they give you feedback, which I think is really good. So they tell you how well you performed, what the interviewers liked about your interview, which areas they think you might have struggled with, or what they think you might improve. So whether you get the job or not, they give you feedback so that for your next applications, you are as good of a candidate as possible. So that was the sort of gist of it.
Accepted.
Pardon?
Give the feedback even if you're fine and you're accepted.
Yes, so I was accepted and I still got feedback saying, you did well in this, this, and this, and you could have improved here and here. So
that's good.
Yeah.
And so with that rigorous process for getting in, what was it like when you actually started? And with that kind of process, it kind of builds up an expectation of how the environment is going to be. And so how did that line up with when you actually started working there? And the culture or the way they do work on a daily basis?
Yeah, so once you've gone through that, you have remarkable expectations, and everyone knows the brand, Rolls Royce. So everyone has high expectations as to what you're going to see there.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I had the same expectations. And when I went there during my first placement, I was surprised in a good way. So my expectation was, I'm going to go into this very engineering, very formal, very strict, and very, how do I put it, very cutthroat environment where everyone is trying to outperform everyone and, very competitive, sort of toxic environment. And, you're trying to prepare to wear your best suit every day and come out and show off. But when I went there, it was the complete opposite. People were very relaxed, very helpful, very kind. And, I think that's the best connection. Young men. So you have engineers, people that have worked there for 15, 20 years, people who are fellows and, they know their thing in and out. And, they come to you every day to have just a chat, with just having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Or if you need a very simple help, whatever task you're doing, they're more than happy to provide help. So it really eased my, calmed my nerves, because when I went there, I was very nervous and, trying to put on my best face and, do everything perfectly. When I went there and I saw the culture was very helpful and very relaxed and very, chilled, it sort of eased me down, and I was able to perform actually a lot more better than I would have if I was trying to, be all prim and proper and, pretend to be the best guy in the world. Precisely. And, they have a culture where you're no longer ashamed to ask questions, which I think is very important in the workplace, because if you're working in a toxic environment, they'll be too proud to ask questions, or they don't want to seem like they don't know enough, or you have certain ego, or you're worried your manager might not give you that promotion if you seem like you don't know what you're doing. But it wasn't the case at all. People were, it was very open, very honest, and it builds a culture of trust within everyone. So I think I was really happy to have made that type of work culture.
That's really good. So what do your daily tasks look like on a daily basis? What products are you creating engineering for? Have you seen any final products like rollout?
Okay. So within the past 6 months, I've actually, like a promotion basically. So before COVID, I was working in the production test facility. So this is where we produce our engines and we manufacture, we test, and we sort of ship them out. So pre-COVID, I was working in that environment. So it was a shop floor environment. You have your safety boots, you have your polos and your chinos, and you're walking around being all safe. Every day in the morning, you have your safety, your 9 a.m. brief, where you talk about your delivery, what's on plan, what's slipping out of delivery, any safety issues, any quality issues, any human and people issues, which was quite important because they're quite heavy on human parts and people parts. So you talk to that every day, and then you also work on your side project that you already have assigned to you, but then there's day-to-day task you're dealing with, trying to get products off the delivery line, trying to make sure people on the test beds, you're getting information. And I don't really know how to describe it. It's a bit funny now that I'm thinking about it, but yeah, it's just day-to-day boring job stuff. So yeah,
those engines, what were they for? What were they going to be put into?
Okay. So I think I should give you a brief history or description of different products you do at Rolls Royce. So Rolls Royce is widely known for the cars, for the luxury cars they make. But in reality, actually, Rolls Royce, the company itself, doesn't make the cars anymore. No. They've sort of sold the car business to BMW. So BMW makes the cars, whereas Rolls Royce as the company. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. Everyone asks me if I have a company car, but fortunately I don't. But yeah, Rolls Royce, the company itself, is three main business areas are civil aerospace. So in the civil aerospace, we make jet engines for your civil aviations for airlines like British Airways, Emirates, Delta Airlines, and Airbus and Boeing. So we make the jet engines that go on the aircraft. And we have a defense business as well. So for the defense, we make things like jet engines for fighter jets and, sell to government and contracts and all that type of thing. And then there's a power systems business where they focus on providing power propulsion. So for things like trains, nuclear reactors for submarines, things for ships. There's a marine side to it. And there's a small modular nuclear reactor business for providing, small scale power to houses and people. So really, I think the best way to describe Rolls Royce is an engineering and technology company that provides power. So provide power if it's flight or if it's a marine or if it's for houses and things like that. So for me personally, I'm based in the civil aerospace business. So I work with jet engines that go on your civil aircraft and your business jets and that type of thing. So when I was on the shop floor, I used to, all the time, every day in front of me, we're making jet engines. And we're shipping them off to customers, to, Emirates and everyone. So those are kind of final products I saw. And, you could walk down the massive factory to see the entire assembly line and how, we manufacture and assemble these things. And, up to a point, you take it for granted after like a few weeks working there. But really and truly, it's quite, amazing to see in person, the scale of the amount of things you're doing there. So yeah, those are the kind of products I was involved with.
So since your position had always been really in person and in the shop and hard hat and boots and everything, how has that been able to continue with COVID and with your promotion now, with your new role? It sounds like you're not in that role exactly anymore also.
Yeah, so I got to my new role now. I work in development. And in development, we develop new modifications that go on the aircraft, on the engine. No brainer. When there are like new breakthroughs in materials or new designs that could improve efficiencies or new techniques or new things we could add onto the already existing engines, because typically jet engines have a lifespan of about 25 to 30 years. So, the first product that has been released is typically not the same product that, goes out the life cycle. Within that 25 years period, a lot of modifications will go on that engine just to make sure it's still, you could still compete, basically. So in development, we develop all these mods or new projects, also work for new projects. When we have a new engine project, we're trying to release a new design or new, requirements from Airbus or one of the airframers, we'll work on the new project. So with my new role, it's very different from the previous one in the sense is not as shop floor based as it used to be.
Yeah.
You do a lot of work with design now. You do a lot of work with customers, trying to get requirements from customers. Make sure, you've passed that down through your engineering as much as possible to make sure you've captured everything the customer wants. You do a lot of cross-functional working with the supply chain, trying to make sure you have all the things you need in order to actually manufacture this and deliver to the timelines that is required. and you work with costs, trying to understand the business parts of things, the numbers, the money parts. So it's very cross-functional working in the way it is. But at the same time, you still have a lot of work to do with operations. So, whenever we have a prototype or trying to test, we have to have that prototype built and assembled and tested. And all of these processes would not be your standard production process. You would have to tell the guys in production how you want to build your prototype and how you want to test it, how you want to manufacture it. And you explain to them, you design the experiment, you tell them, okay, I've designed this experiment and this is what I'm trying to see. So you have to be able to design all of that and communicate that effectively to operations so that they can execute what you want them to do. So there's a lot of relationship building with operations. And because right now, like you said, I'm working from home, I can't really go to the shop floor. I have to build that relationship over the phone. And it's very, very weird because a lot of people I haven't even met my new team. I've joined a new team whilst working from home. Yeah. And, you get to know people from their voices and try to, understand their personalities just from their voices and their emails and, reading between the lines and trying to know what people are really trying to say and all that kind of thing. So it is quite difficult because, there's a lot of hardware involved. So maybe when an engine comes back from test and you're trying to strip the engine down to look for faults or to look for any failure modes or anything or investigations, it's quite difficult to do that remotely because you really have to tell the people who are there in the shop floor what you want them to do. So if anything, I would say it's improving my communication skills because now I'm trying to be a lot more direct and concise in saying exactly what it is I want and being a lot more pushy because, now you literally have to pick up the phone to call people. You can't feel nervous or, be like, I'm stopping them. Never get done. So you have to, firm it up and, just call people up or send them bare emails and, send them messages and hopefully try to get the job done. So that's the new working style really.
When you went into the detail about the engines and everything, I'm trying to figure out because I'm out here on the West Coast of the US and we've got Boeing in Seattle and I understand they're building the entire airplane. But do you mean that, do they ever do the engines or are they building just the main structure and you're bringing on the engines?
Okay, so yeah. So the airframer, which the two main airframers are Boeing and Airbus. So Airbus is European. It's based in France, in Toulouse, and while Boeing is American. I'm not sure which state in America, but it's American. So the airframers, they build the aircraft. They build the amount of seats, the specification. They do that with a lot of conversations with the airline and what the sort of the aviation business or industry is saying in that period of time. So there was a time where a lot of people like to travel to hubs. So for example, if you're traveling from Nigeria to, let's say, to
Dubai.
Actually, Dubai is a bit easy. Let's say from Nigeria to Norway or somewhere, you typically take a flight from Lagos. Then you go, if you're going through Emirates, you land in Dubai, which is the main hub. Or if you're going through BA, you land in London Heathrow, which is the main hub, and then you take a connecting flight. So that used to be the sort of business model of the aviation industry recently. But I think now it's starting to change a bit where people are looking for more hoopers. So you're just trying to fly from city to city, and people aren't as interested in going into business hubs anymore. That's my current understanding. I might be wrong. So, but yeah, depending on what the business is saying at that time, the airframers look at that requirement and then they model the aircraft for the airlines for the next, 20, 25 years or what they've predicted. And then we take that requirement from the airframer, depending on the size of the aircraft, how heavy it's going to be, and then also take a requirement from the airline as well, in terms of things like fuel specifications or how much fuel, how much money they want to spend on fuel. You have things from regulators as well, so things like emissions, noise complaints. You're trying to be a lot more greener these days. So your engine has, there are a lot of requirements you need to meet from a certification point of view. So we take all these requirements and then we design and develop the engines and then we ship them out to the airframer, wherever they are. So if it's going to Airbus, it's going to go through France. I think we drive them there because, France and the UK is not so far away. But with Boeing, I think we fly them over to the US. So that's how, the company operates.
I had no idea everything worked that way.
Yeah.
But I guess away from the technical side, you are a recent graduate and a young man. You're from Nigeria. You're in the UK. How has your experience working in the company been as kind of a young person that's might easily be viewed as an outsider or something like that, as a young Black immigrant engineer
Yeah.
company? How has that experience been for you?
Well, if I'm being honest, working in Rolls Royce, I haven't been very conscious of being Black. Basically, they're doing a good job about it. And I think it's one of the reasons is because it's a multinational company. And, if you look across the board, one of the key ingredients for driving innovation, if you're multinational, is you have to have diversity. That's the only way you can innovate. That's the only way you can have new ideas, new different ideas, by hiring people who are different. So the company is conscious in terms of that. So, they do a lot of outreach activities in terms of supporting women in STEM. They do a lot of things trying to, encourage, people from ethnic minorities, Black, Asian, and other minorities to apply into roles and giving them those positions. And slowly the tide is being changed and they listen. So senior management listen when we talk about the issues that ethnic minorities face within the company or certain perceptions people might have, and that biases that managers might have maybe when it comes to giving promotions or giving certain opportunities. And managers are constantly being trained to fight against these biases in their day job. And the company also supports what we call an employee resource group, an ERG. So most companies have that, and then we have one for the Afro-Caribbean network, where we sort of talk directly with senior management. So CEO, CFO, this level, and we tell them the problems we're facing and how we think the company can address it and where they need to invest, and they actually listen. So I can't really complain. I'm quite, grateful to be in a company that actually listens to what you have to say. And I know it sounds like I'm playing it safe here. I'm trying to secure my job, but being very honest, they've done an amazing job in that sense. So that's been my experience within the company. And, in terms of numbers, I still think a lot of Black people can come into that company. There still isn't enough Black people. There isn't enough. Or I appreciate the fact that the company is being conscious about it and is driving, trying to get more women, trying to get more Asians, Blacks, and get more diverse, workforce essentially. So that's my experience from a working point of view. From a social point of view, really, I think, whenever I reflect, really, I could, it's just gratitude, because when I think about myself, like some kid from Surulere, all of a sudden, boom, from Bonitomo. So it just constantly, I remind myself that, you really, it sounds very cliche, but, if you have a plan and you have what you want to achieve, all you have to do is plan and be stubborn about your plan in terms of how you pursue it, and make sure you're very tenacious and you're very, pushy about it and follow it as much as you can. And, I try my best to speak to other people who are still in university, or the young people who are looking for similar opportunities, because I knew how hard it was trying to get to where I am or the position I'm in. And, I'm trying to make sure I can encourage or, make it easier for other people as much as I can to actually get to where we are, because we need more people. There isn't enough more people, enough Black people, not more people. But yeah. So that's sort of the personal side of it, and, constantly trying to push and motivate people and just tell them, just this is what you need to do. This is how you need to get into that sector and that sort of thing. So overall, it's been a very good experience.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping for with this series. I'm trying to get engineers from different sectors just so we could share. And it seems like a big mystery when you're on the outside, but
definitely
hearing from someone on the inside feels very different for sure.
And I think it's quite useful what you're doing as well, in terms of when you have students who are just completing their A-levels or foundation and trying to apply for universities. Most people just apply for courses based on what they hear in terms of the name, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, architecture, business, finance, law. They don't really know what the day job is like. They don't really know what the experience is like. Something might sound really cool from the outside, but you could do it and realize, I hate this job. I don't like it. This is not me. This is not who I am. It sounds cool on paper, but it's not who you are personally. So I think it's very important to share this kind of, the platform you have and, giving that information out to people so people can really understand what the day job is like, and that people can hopefully plan a lot more appropriately.
Yeah, for sure. I guess a final thing you mentioned, sticking to the plan and walking that out. And so for you, you just got this promotion. Like, what do you think what do you feel like the future holds for you? What's in the plans? What does the path for advancement at the company look like right now?
So within the company currently, my short-term goals are, first of all, to get my engineering chartership. So that takes about 4 to 5 years to get. So I'm 2 years in already. So in the next 2 to 3 years, hopefully I can get that out of the way. And
what is that? Is that like a certification?
Yeah. So you have a governing body called the IMechE, Institute of Mechanical Engineers in the UK. So they give you a certificate to say you're a chartered engineer. And, that just sort of validates you as an engineer to see you've gone through a rigorous sort of training, or your experience is, validated or verified, if you will. And then it raises your market value, and you can consult and you can do a lot of things with that in your pocket. So that's my short-term goal. So I have a mentor in the company who specifically talks me through my sort of development. So that's one advice I'll give to people, always try to look for mentors as much as you can. So outside of my IMechE mentor, I also have a career coach. So a career coach is someone also in the company who's had good experience in the company. And his main role to me is to talk me through my career options within the company and how I can progress within that company to build my my career essentially. And at the same time, I have like 3 or 4 other people who I talk to, who I see as mentors essentially. And I talk to them about my long-term plans, so whether it's related with the company or not, and my long-term vision. And these are people that are quite senior and, care about you as a young person. So, you need to find someone you trust that you can be very honest with. And they can also give you honest feedback. So if you're not doing a good enough job, you need someone to tell you so you can improve. And then you also need someone you can confide in and tell them your long-term plans and, not have that person take away certain opportunities from you. Because some people, if you tell them, in the next 10 years, I want to be doing, investment banking, they're not going to give you the next promotion, if you see what I mean. So you want to find the perfect person who also pushes you to the limits, constantly challenging you to improve yourself. So that's something I strongly recommend you find. And also find people that you want to emulate. I think that's really good. If you see people in your company or in your private or social life or anywhere really that you sort of admire and you like how they work, or as leaders, try to, get them as mentors, because it rubs off a lot without you even realizing. So, that's something I would strongly recommend. So that's my plan in terms of working within the company, but I also have, long-term plans. So for example, for me, I'm very, very passionate about Nigeria. And I'm very passionate about, the potential that Nigeria has. And when you look at that in contrast with the current state, it's quite disappointing when you know what you're capable of. So I have a few ideas or a few plans that I'm working towards. And long term, I see myself definitely giving everything I have built up back to Nigeria, because I think there's a lot more people there that can benefit from whatever I have to offer. Mm-hmm. So my long-term plan definitely revolves around Nigeria and, coming up with a startup or company, and a few ideas in the back.
It sounds good, man. It's so good to talk to you, and thank you for doing this, really. It's funny you mentioned the certification, because it's kind of like an American equivalent, and it's about 4 or 5 years as well.
Okay.
That's when you get to become like a manager or something. And I should be doing that. Okay. Depending on where you are, you get to take it early. So I'm where I take it early. So I should be doing it in October, and I should be studying already, but that's a different story.
Yeah. But, long.
But yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing
My
so
pleasure.
much of your experiences. And I
My
hope
pleasure.
people can really benefit from it.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyone watching, if you have any questions about Rolls Royce or the UK and education or engineering, feel free to drop your comments. If you have any similar experiences, feel free to drop your comments. I'll pass them on to Salim if I can.
Yeah. I'll be lurking.
Yeah, I hope this was really educating for anyone, and I'll see you all next time. And it will probably be just me without Salim, but I'm going to try to find other engineers that can share experiences in engineering. I think I know more engineers than anyone else, but I might even expand to non-engineers. We'll see.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? Definitely.
All right. Well, thank you, Salim. Have a good day.
No worries. Thank you all. Yeah. Good night.